Good morning, everyone. We're continuing here in the words of the CHOFETZ CHAIM, and he's speaking about that the same statement that you make about two different people, for one it could be a praise, and one it could end up being considered lashon hara, depending on who the person themselves is. If it's something that seems praiseworthy for them, for example, like we said, a person who works all day long and still pushes himself to learn 2 to 3 hours a day, we would call that praiseworthy. But a person who is sitting and learning in Klal and his needs are being provided for, and we know that he's only learning 2 or 3 hours a day, that's a disgrace to him, and therefore that's lashon hara. We spoke over here about the difference between a person with not such significant means of money, the way that he's mechaber, the way that he honors Shabbos, he spends his money lavishly in order to make Shabbos beautiful, the food and the drink and the nash and everything that he does. That's a praise to him. On the other hand, if you have a very wealthy person who basically spends the same amount of money, so then that's a genai, that's a disgrace to him, because why aren't you doing more than you could based on your monetary means? So the CHOFETZ CHAIM writes, this wealthy person is going to end up being disgraced in the eyes of the people that are listening, because they're going to say he's such a miser, he's so cheap and tight with his money, he doesn't spend it appropriately for Shabbos. The lashon hara mikra in this is certainly lashon hara. The same thing would apply when it comes to tzedakah, to giving charity. Is also dependent upon the financial means of a person. What to one person will be called a praise, the way that he gives his tzedakah so nicely, to another person who has a lot more money, but he only gives the same amount of tzedakah as the less rich person, it's a genai, it's really an insult. The same thing is when it comes to the way that you treat other people. If there's conversation that is said about an ish beinani, an average person, he treats his workers and his staff in a certain way, which is typical for average people, the way they would treat them. They're nice to them and they're kind to them. They give them whatever benefits they can. They don't treat them incredible off the charts because they don't have the means to be able to do that. But they're known as a very nice boss, and he tries to take care of them in the best way that is possible. Now, that's good for him. However, it would not be considered to be negative. It's very good. However, if they speak about a very prominent, distinguished member of the community, he behaves in the same manner as the average person does with his workers. So then, this is going to be something that's a disgrace for him. It's derogatory. Because for him, we would expect him to go above and beyond the letter of the law when it comes to treating his employees. We would have expected him to give them more benefits and to be even nicer and a bigger bonus come the holiday season. And yet he treats them just the way the average person does. So for him, it's a genai, it's a disgrace. And similarly, in all these different kinds of cases, says the CHOFETZ CHAIM, it's very hard for me, says the CHOFETZ CHAIM, to list for you all of the different scenarios and cases of lashon hara. However, keep the words of the Rambam close to your heart and think about what he says, which is atar l'roishcha, and it should be a crown to your head, which means you'll remind yourself constantly about what he says. Uzechor oisai tamid, remember his words always, and that is the kol davar shim yisfarsim, anything that you say, that if it would be revealed, yuchal ligrom lechaver hezek v'gufa b'maynai, you'd be able to cause physical or financial harm to the person you're speaking about. Oy lahatzelai, or you could distress him. Oy la'avchilo, you could scare him. Harei lashon hara, that's all lashon hara. And therefore, that's lashon hara, and therefore you have to be so careful, says the CHOFETZ CHAIM. Okay, we'll continue this paragraph tomorrow, Mitzvah Hashem, to see how he rounds it off in these inyanim, in these ways. All the best.